What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right. So before I get into this video, I want to give a big shout out to the brother Claiborne Bell for the $10 donation via the PayPal. And I saw your note, and you're right on the money. You know, it does have a lot to do with stuff like what you pointed out. It's stuff like that that people have conveniently forgotten about over the years. So yes, you know, we on the same accord. All right. So peace be upon you, brother, for showing love to Too Raw for TV, aka Too Raw for Sports. All right. So in this particular video, I want to talk about Wilt Chamberlain's 1971-72 season. All right. Now, of course, that's the year that the Lakers went what was then an NBA record 69-13. When I was growing up as a kid, that was the franchise record from NBA record, I shouldn't say, not franchise. That was the NBA record for most wins in an NBA season, 69. Of course, that would ultimately be broken by the 1995-96 Chicago Bulls, who went 72-10, and that record would be broken 20 years later by the Golden State Warriors, who went 73-9. Now, one thing about that Lakers team that hasn't been broken is, of course, their win streak. They had a phenomenal 33-game winning streak during the 1971-72 season. 33 games. And I believe the streak started the night that Elgin Baylor officially retired. Okay? I think the closest a team has come to that is the Miami Heat. I can't remember exactly what season it was. I think it was 2012-13. I think that team won 27 games in a row, and that streak was ended by my Chicago Bulls, and I predicted that they were going to do it that night. All right. That team averaged 121 points per game. They won by an average of 12.3 points per game, and they averaged 27.2 team assists per contest. That was a team. This wasn't just Jerry West in his prime or Gail Goodrich in his prime or Wilt Chamberlain certainly in his prime. This was a collection of players who were getting older, but they played as a unit, and it showed. And they ultimately won a championship, and Wilt Chamberlain won his second NBA Finals MVP. Now, by this stage of his career, Wilt was trying to do his best Bill Russell impersonation. All right? Now, he was not quite the defender that Bill Russell was overall by this time. He was not quite the total, I would say he wasn't the passer that Bill Russell was, as far as overall surveying the floor. He was great, but Bill was even better at passing from the pivot. I think Wilt was better from passing from the low post, and I think Bill was better passing from the high post. But anyway, Chamberlain, however, was a phenomenal. He was just better scoring the basketball. He's bigger, stronger. Was formerly a league champion in scoring. So by this time, Wilt had switched to being more of a power player. He was more of a power player, and at this time, also the NBA rules had changed a bit. Earlier in Wilt's career, big men could double hand check. Big men could be a little bit more physical with centers. So it was kind of more difficult if you watch how they played with the double teaming and all that. It was kind of difficult for a guy to just get the ball, back you down, and dunk. Shaq would have had some problems in the 60s just because of the way the game was officiated. But by the early 1970s, double hand checking was outlawed. They were cutting down on double and triple teaming and mauling and all that shit. So it was a little bit easier for big men to get by their man in the early 70s. And so that freed up Wilt to be more of a power dunker as the way we see players play today. And he did just that. He made the most out of all of his shots. That particular year, Wilt averaged 65% shooting from the floor from the season. 65% shooting for the season. He averaged 14.8 points, 19.2 rebounds, 4 assists. And while they did not keep track of blocks, he probably averaged something around 6 blocks per game by that time in his career. He probably averaged something around 6 blocks. Now, this is when Wilt had lost a lot of his athleticism and quickness and speed and agility and vertical leap. This is when Wilt probably had a vertical leap of around 26 to 28 inches. It was not the same. And he still was a very good shot blocker. He was not the guy who had a 45-inch vertical leap anymore, like in 1961, 62, or 60, when he was probably averaging double-digit blocks per game. There is a stretch of games where the old Philadelphia 76ers statistician, I think his last name was Pollock, he actually tracked how many blocks Wilt Chamberlain averaged over a 112-game period. And over this 112-game period, and this is when Wilt was like maybe 30, 31, Wilt averaged 8.8 blocks per game over a 112-game period. Contrast that to what is the official NBA record for most blocks in a season, which I think is 456, which averages out to a little over 5 by Mark Eaton. Just goes to show you how prolific a shot blocker Wilt Chamberlain and guys like him and Nate Thurman and Bill Russell really are and were. But in the playoffs that year, in the first round, the Lakers beat the Chicago Bulls. I think they swept them. Wilt Chamberlain, despite the pace of that era, averaged an amazing 48 minutes per contest. Someone messaged me the other day saying, man, Mike, Too Raw, you're too hard on these players today. Like, the pace that these guys play at, they can't play back-to-back. Bullshit. The fastest pace in NBA history was the 1960s, okay? Not only were they moving at a faster pace than today's players, they were actually expected to play defense, and they had to run up and down the court on wearing those ridiculous-ass, poorly fitting Chuck Taylors, which gave you no arch support. And they didn't get hurt at the rate that these players today get hurt at. So I don't want to hear that bullshit, okay? So Wilt Chamberlain, playing in the fastest pace in the history of the NBA, averaged 48 minutes per contest. 48, meaning he played every minute of every fucking game. He averaged 14.5 points, 20.8 rebounds, 4 assists, and we don't know how many blocks he averaged because they didn't keep track of it. Okay? In the next round, it was a rematch with the defending champion Milwaukee Bucks, who they had lost to in the conference finals the year prior. At this time, Milwaukee was in the Western Conference. The Lakers got their revenge, beating them, I think, in something like 6 games. And in that series, Wilt Chamberlain averaged 45.8 points, only 10.8 rebounds, but 19.3 rebounds and 3.3 assists. And in the NBA Finals, Wilt Chamberlain, when he won Finals MVP, this is with Wilt that was playing on one leg, was not nearly the same player that he was before. Now, a shell, 47.2 minutes per contest, 19.4 points per game, 23.3 rebounds per game, 2.6 assists per contest, and he probably averaged something around 6.5 blocks per game in that series and won his second Finals MVP. And this is a man that was a shell of himself. And this is a man who had changed his game to complement the team. But people always say that Wilt was selfish and didn't want to change. Wilt wanted to win. And Wilt did what was best for the team. You know, was he a guy in love with his stats? Maybe. All these players are, though. He was a champion. Yes, he didn't win as much as he should have. But I can tell you this, man. There's some similarities between Wilt Chamberlain and Giannis. Boston was the better team. You can even make an argument that, hey, the series between the Boston Celtics and the Bucks is a perfect comparison to what Wilt Chamberlain was going through. Oftentimes playing against a team that was just better, more talented. He didn't have the help or the talent around him, but people unfairly judged him on that. You know? But, it is what it is. But tell me what you guys think.